Here are just a few categories of questions that I think you might find particularly revealing when you're talking to belowtheline.ai.
Okay, give us some good examples here.
All right, so first, if you're interested in a particular senator's stance on an issue,
Okay.
you could ask something like, how has, and then insert the senator's name here, voted on bills related to, and then choose a specific policy area like, let's say, the transition to renewable energy since 2022.
Okay, so that's a very direct way to get that information.
Yeah, it's a good starting point.
What about if you want to kind of go a little bit broader?
Well, you could ask, were there any recorded votes on motions concerning? And then pick a specific topic like the rising cost of living in 2023, and how did this particular senator vote on them?
Okay, so that's interesting because you're not just looking at laws that were passed.
No, you're looking at the broader conversation.
You're looking at what they were talking about and how they felt about it,
Yeah.
even if it didn't result in any concrete action.
Right, and that can often tell you a lot about their political leanings.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so we've got two good questions. What's another one?
All right, how about this? Can you summarize and then the senator's name voting record on amendments related to, and then choose a specific bill? So let's say the Aged Care Amendment Bill 2022.
Okay, so that's really getting into the weeds a little bit.
It is. It's getting into the details.
Because you're looking at not just did they vote for the bill or against the bill, but how did they vote on all the little changes that were proposed?
Exactly. And that can reveal their priorities, what specific aspects of the bill they supported or opposed.
Yeah, that's a really good one to really get down to the nitty-gritty.
And then if you're interested in government accountability, you could ask, has the Senate ordered the production of any documents related to? And then choose a specific government agency, like, let's say, the Department of Health, since 2022. And what was the general context of those orders?
Okay, so that's really interesting because it's not just looking at, how individual senators voted, but it's looking at the Senate as a whole.
Right, it's looking at the actions.
And how they're trying to hold the government to account.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, and do we have one more?
All right, one more. So for a more interpretive question you could ask, based on their voting record since 2022, what potential connections or overarching themes might emerge regarding this senator's approach to, and then choose a broader theme, like, let's say, environmental protection?
Oh, that's interesting because you're really asking the AI to kind of synthesize information.
Yeah.
And come up with some bigger picture analysis.
Exactly. And maybe suggest some areas for further investigation.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that a lot.
So as you can see, just by having, a little bit of understanding of how the Senate works and the kind of information that's contained in these records, you can really start to ask some much more focused and insightful questions.
Absolutely.
Of an AI tool like belowtheline.ai.
It moves you beyond just, asking like really basic questions. And it allows you to really probe the actions and the priorities of our elected officials.
And that's really where the power of these AI tools comes in.
Yeah.
When you, the user, have a solid grasp of the data they're working with.
Right. You're not just kind of blindly throwing things at it and hoping for the best.
No, you're coming with an informed perspective.
Yeah. And I think that's really what this deep dive has been all about, is kind of giving our listeners that foundation, that starting point to then go and do their own exploration.
Exactly. Because these Senate records, they are a treasure trove.
They are.
Of information.
And, you're right. The AI is only as good as the questions you ask it.
Exactly.
All right, so to bring this deep dive to a close, we've taken a look at these recent Senate records, focusing primarily on 2022 onwards.
Right.
And highlighted how these documents, packed with votes on bills, motions, amendments, they provide this really detailed snapshot.
Yeah, it's like a window into their world.
Of our senators' activities and priorities.
Yeah, and we've also talked about how understanding that broader context of all these parliamentary proceedings can really empower you to ask much more effective questions of these AI tools.
Exactly.
Like belowtheline.ai.
So we really encourage you to think about the issues that you care about.
Yes.
And drawing on the examples that we've discussed, consider the kinds of questions you might want to ask belowtheline.ai using this really rich source of Senate information.
Absolutely. Go forth and explore.
And that leads us to our final thought for you today.
Okay.
As AI tools become increasingly accessible and capable of analyzing all this complex information, like these Senate records, how might this fundamentally shift the way that we as citizens interact with and understand the actions of our elected officials?
That's a great question to ponder.
What broader impacts could this have on transparency and accountability within our democratic processes?
Yeah, that's something we all need to be thinking about.
it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we use it.
Absolutely. And what it means for our democracy.
Exactly. So that's something to keep in mind long after this deep dive is over.
A lot to think about.
Indeed it is. All right. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.